If you've watched someone use Claude or Codex and thought to yourself, why are they getting this result, but every time I try and do it, it fails? This video is for you. There's no magic prompt. There's no specific skill that's going to help you. You're lacking a framework and methodology for thinking of how to work with an agent. My name is Derek, and over the last 6 months, I have sent over 48,000 messages to Claude Code. This is the formula and methodology that I wish I had when I started. Everything changed with the creation of Opus 4.5. It's no longer about what you type, and it's more about how you think. So in this video, I'm going to break it down into 3 parts. How to pick the right project, how to clarify and plan before you build, and then getting to the finish line. Building with AI is not a tool problem anymore. The models are so capable that all you need is a $20 subscription to OpenAI. The doing keeps getting easier. The thinking is the thing that you need to be prioritizing. This technically isn't part of the loop, but it should be. You need to pick a real problem or project. You have to be tied to the outcome. You need to be solving something that's in your life. You need to go to business owners or family members and say, hey, let me do X, Y, and Z for you. What's the biggest thing you're coming up against? How can I fix this for you? Because what this will show you is a lot of people have an idea of what their problem is, or they have an idea of what they would want to solve the problem, and both of those things are incorrect. But the cool part is you can actually use Claude or Codex to help uncover and unravel what actually needs to be solved for. The most important step when it comes to building with these agents is clarifying what you build. The reason that this is hard is because if this is the start, this is the finish. What you have to do with your agent is you have to both think about the entirety of the application, but you also have to think about these little checkpoints and be very detailed about them. So let's say this is the security. This is the auth. This one is the UI UX. This one is the design. And so the most difficult part is that you have to choose when to scope in and get very detailed on this specific portion, but then you also have to choose when to scope out and say, hey, you're actually way too bogged down by the details of this one thing. I need you to zoom out and think about the product as a whole. The great part is you can actually use skills like office hours or brainstorming. Those are 2 publicly available skills on GitHub that you can use to help ask questions and gain clarity and context into what you're trying to build. You can also use the plan mode inside Claude or Codex natively. The important part here is we're not actually building anything yet. We're just building the context of what we're trying to build. The analogy here is there's 23,000 different Lego sets. If you say you want to build a Batman Lego set, there's probably 50 different Lego sets that you could choose from, and they all would be correct. One might be a Batmobile, one might be the Batcave, one might be the Joker, and they're all correct. If you just said, build me a Batman Lego set, they all use the same blocks, but that's why we need to get very specific. And back to the start, that's why you need to be tied into the problem. That's why you need to have to be solving a real problem, because if you don't experience the pain, or if you aren't close to the pain and understand it, then you're going to build the wrong thing and no one's going to use it, or even worse, they're going to use it and they're never going to use it again. 2 side tips that I've learned here that help a lot in the planning process is, number 1, spinning up 5 to 7 subagents to identify blind spots or creating suggestions for what can be improved, and then using Claude or Codex to rank those suggestions, because typically speaking, the first 5 to 10 are actually very good suggestions, and you should probably implement all of them. As they get down and you do this a few times, they're going to be less and less effective. But realistically, as long as you're probing the large language model with a different way of thinking, it's going to come up with something that you might want to add. The other thing is, if you have both Codex and Claude, is using them together as a software team. Essentially creating a handoff. All you have to do is create a handoff in Markdown that I can send to Claude that references specific files so it can review and question all your assumptions or question your methodology or harden the plan. There's a lot of different ways that you can word it, but what you'll find is Codex is really able to find a lot of the areas that Claude has just made a mistake. And when you send the results that Codex finds to Claude, he's like, oh yeah, that was my mistake. I'll fix that right now. So those are two really important things that I've kind of found that have helped the planning process. Keep in mind that 50 to 70% of the time that I spend building is in this planning or brainstorming time. It is by far the most important thing that you need to do because it sets the tone for everything else. This is where you're going to put in all the context of your project, all the lookalikes, all the information that you have in your brain. What I like to do is I literally hit record and I just yap for as long as I can about what specifically I want. I'll throw in comparable images or design or styles in a sense that there's not really too much information that you can give in this process. A lot of times what I like to ask is there any context that you would like to hear from me that I'm missing, that I haven't given you? Or I use this thing called /user ask user question tool that allows Claude Code to then ask me questions and clarify certain things. After planning, it now comes time to build the dang thing. This is a super simple and straightforward step, but there's two more tricks that I want to tell you about. The first is probably 85 or 95% of the time I'm going with the recommended option. So what might happen is Claude Code might ask you questions of, hey, what did you mean about this? This is where we're at. What would you like to do to proceed? It's encountered a problem or there's some sort of uncertainty that it doesn't know how to progress, so it asks you a question. Typically, it's 3 or 4 answers. And always it's going to give you a recommended option. More often than not, I'm going with the recommended option. Because what happens is if you don't go with the recommended option too many times, you can trip up the agent because it feels like it's being pulled in multiple directions. And so if you don't go with the recommended option, what I typically like to do is I write my own answer and then I say, update the Claude MD with these learnings, or update any important documents that would matter with this response. Another thing that I like to do is as you build this thing out, there might be ideas that you get, or there might be options to add certain things to the project. Do not do it. If Claude or Codex suggests an addition, what you do is you just say, add this to the todo.md document and we'll work on it after. Because what that does is it adds a layer of complication that is not necessary and will completely derail you. You might be able to still get it done, but what it does is it splits the compute of this agent, and a lot of times it weights too heavily on the new direction instead of the old context and plan, which is why we spent so much time on the plan at the start. The point of this is to actually make a mess. We're supposed to get to the finish line, and the first iteration is never the finish line. But if we're constantly tweaking, if we're constantly, oh, I need to rewrite this section. Oh, this needs to be perfect. Oh, this isn't actually how I wanted it. We just have to get to the first iteration. So we just need to see the first iteration of this project, so then we can iterate on that. That's where the taking screenshots and sending it in. That's where we're testing the UI UX. That's why we're editing the colors. That's where we're editing the design. This is where you start fine-tuning, but you have to get to the finish, and that's why we're not touching the plan. That's why we're skipping all the way through, because we just need to see what the first thing is that it created. It's not going to be what you wanted, but that's okay, because now we know, okay, this is different from where I wanted it. Let's change it. I hope you got something out of this. Stop thinking about your project as a one-off prompt, a one-off thing that there's a magic pill that this is exactly what I'm going to say and it's going to be finished. What this is a way of thinking and constantly iterating and improving. And even when you make these applications, what you'll realize is there's going to be bugs that come up. As you add users, things are going to fail. So what you want to do is you want to create a framework for consistently improving upon what you've built. If you want to hear more about anything that I've talked about in this video, or if you want to see some of the things that I've actually built, comment down below. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you.